Hi everyone, my name's Rugba. I'm a fourth year medical student at the University of Nottingham, and over the last 4 weeks, I've been working on a special study module with Mr. Sumi Abdul, all about learning how to set up and successfully run local and international courses. So, as part of my work, I have put together kind of a three-part series on how to, or like the key considerations and tips to setting up or successfully setting up a course or conference. So this is the first presentation. It will be a general overview. And the second presentation is all about finances, sponsorships, how you're going to fund your course. And the last presentation will be about advertising, marketing, and using social media to help advertise your course. So I hope you find this series somewhat useful in setting up your course and you learn something new. So this content page just covers everything that I'm going to talk about today. So start off by talking about how you choose your topic, speak a bit about speaker recruitment, face-to-face versus online teaching, funding and sponsorships, the schedule and program of your course, advertising and marketing, booking and registration, on-the-day logistics, and then we'll finish talking about feedback. So choosing your topic or area of interest. So this can be dependent on the individual, but it's important to consider both the who and the what. So some individuals may know who they want to present to and not what, and others may know what but not know who. So regardless of which way around it goes, they're both really important to establish nice and early. So if I talk about who first, they there are different groups that you can kind of consider, especially if you're working in the field of medicine. The first kind of group could be applying students. So maybe year 12s, year 13s, you could run a course on how to get into medicine and provide some tips and skill sessions which pertain to that. You could also run a course for current medical students, could do one for resident doctors or specialty trainees and then consultants. Um, and then kind of when you're thinking about who your target audience is, then you can kind of determine what you present about and what you teach about and which level that you pitch at. So when considering your what, you need to choose a topic which you're passionate about, which will help you kind of invest in the process and be really keen to see it through, and also kind of help you through the process when it gets a bit harder. Um, it's important to consider any new or unique insights or cutting edge techniques. Ask yourself what the current emerging trends within medicine or your specialty are. So, what's new? What haven't people learned or heard about? What's going to catch people's attention? It's important also to focus on areas that have significant research potential or clinical impact. As I briefly mentioned before, thinking about if there's a gap in the market, what hasn't been covered before, and then also ensuring that the topic is appropriate for the target audience. So if you're presenting to medical students, making sure that if you're talking about kind of a medical concept, you're not making it too niche and you're pitching it at the correct level for their current understanding. Sorry. So next, if we speak about course delivery and speaker recruitment. So this kind of is just top 5 kind of tips for how to recruit the best speakers and some advice on how you can go about that. So the first tip is to use social media platforms and your professional network. So whether that's making a post on LinkedIn or posting a message in any WhatsApp groups that you might be part of that are relevant, these ways can really help spread the word and get some information out there. You could create an application form. So I think a benefit of this is it allows people that have a genuine interest in presenting at your conference or course to reach out to you. And it kind of prevents you from just chasing a bunch of individuals who may not be so keen. So it kind of increases the likelihood that you'll get a good response from these individuals if they've put themselves forward. And they're also really easy to kind of distribute and send out. So if you just copy the link to the application form and post it in any of the posts that you put out on social media, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Instagram, it's really easy for people just to fill that out if they're interested. You could also ask your colleagues if they have any contacts or recommendations. That kind of increases the likelihood that they're going to be reliable. Um, it's important to set out a clear outline nice and early of what you'll need from the speaker to prevent any last minute dropouts or things like that. So date, time, location, what you want them to do. So say, I'd like you to do a 20-minute presentation on X topic or something like that, so they know what's expected from them nice and early, just so it's nice and clear, and they kind of know what they're getting into. And lastly, it can be good to provide an incentive. So that can be financial if your budget so allows, or experiential. So especially in the cases of medical students and resident doctors, these individuals are always looking to build their portfolios. So it's a good idea to kind of suggest that their contribution to your course or conference can be something that can be featured on their portfolio, and that is often a really good incentive. So now if we move on to speaking about location, so online versus face-to-face, especially since COVID, the COVID pandemic, there's been an increase in the amount of courses, teaching, conferences that have been held online. And there are pros and cons to kind of both options. So I'll speak through a few of them here, but this list isn't exhaustive. So there's obviously more that you could consider. Um, so first, flexibility. So online, a lot more flexible than face-to-face, as attendees can join from anywhere. Cost, online tends to have lower costs unless you do have to pay for the platform. So I know, for example, I think on Zoom, if you have an audience over a certain number, you do have to upgrade your membership or your subscription. So that's potentially where some costs may come up there. But face to face, there's a lot more to pay for. So venue costs, refreshments if you're feeding your attendees, travel, accommodation, things like that. Next, engagement. So online, there's the potential for lower engagement, whereas face to face, there's direct audience interaction and more opportunities for hands-on learning, which is obviously a pro. Then there's reliance on technology. So online, this is quite high, requires internet connectivity and tech literacy, which for some older generations may be more difficult, or in some parts of the world may not be as accessible. Then there's also, for face-to-face, there's less reliance on technology aside from kind of basics like a projector or the computer that you're using. Online, much more accessible than face-to-face. Online, there's also a higher audience reach, so you can cater to kind of global audiences, whereas face-to-face, that's a lot more limited, and there'll be costs that are incurred if people are traveling from far away to come to your course. The opportunity for networking and peer interactions are much lower online, which is quite a big con. And although there are some ways that you can work around this, such as having breakout rooms, it tends to be a lot more, like the conversations tend to be a lot more inorganic compared to the face-to-face conversations, which tend to come up more naturally. And it's kind of easier to facilitate networking sessions throughout the day. So that's another key consideration. And then lastly, course materials. So online, it's less interactive. There are some opportunities for like online quizzes and simulations, but face-to-face is kind of better. You can get in some simulators, some hands-on practice suturing, depending on what you're teaching and what your course is about. But there'll be a lot more opportunity for hands-on learning throughout the day. So booking a space, 6 kind of key things to consider would be setting the date and time nice and early. When choosing your location, thinking about accessibility, any kind of the proximity to public transport, so buses, train stations, is there parking available? Is there like a nearby hotel for anyone that's traveling from out of town? Higher fees, so that's not just for the venue, but also for any additional equipment. So do they charge to use their projector? Like, is it extra to use their AV equipment, or does it all come in one kind of one bundle price, I guess you could call it. Available equipment, so are there toilets on site? Is there Wi-Fi available? Do they have equipment such as projectors, computers, sound systems, whiteboards, capacity and layout? So that's kind of the set out of the room. Is it easy to kind of rearrange the room for your different sessions? Will it comfortably fit the amount of attendees that you're expecting? And then there's also catering and refreshments. So if you're providing refreshments, is there kind of a corkage fee? Uh, is there a restaurant on site that you could kind of collaborate with to provide meals for your attendees? If your attendees are bringing in packed lunches, is that like another canteen space or a separate space where they could eat? So those are all some key things that you should be considering. Oh, so funding and sponsorships. I'll speak a lot more about this in the finances presentation, which will be number 2. But kind of the first thing to consider is to set out your budget and calculate your costs. So loads of different costs that can be incurred throughout this process, whether that's from venue costs, audiovisual equipment, your speakers, if you decide to kind of remunerate them, or if you're paying for them to kind of speak, marketing and promotion, registration fees, so any platforms that you may use, and then food and beverage, traveling and accommodation, staffing. So loads of different things that you could potentially have to pay for. So it's really important that you set out your budget nice and early. And also a key thing is to create a contingency fund. So maybe setting aside around 10% of your budget, just kind of in case there are any last minute unexpected costs that come in, so you're not kind of caught off guard. Second is researching potential funding sources. So that's partnering with any companies, looking for any companies that may be interested in partnering with you, applying for any potential grants, educational grants that might be out there, or if you want to do a fundraiser or things like that, but just planning that nice and early. Number 3, developing your proposal. So that's in the case of any brand partnerships or sponsorships, making sure that you kind of point out what is different and new, and what your course kind of offers, and also considering what your course can offer to them as a company and a brand. So why should they kind of partner with you, and what will they get out of the opportunity? And then lastly is utilizing your network. So friends, family, colleagues, ask them if they know anyone that might be interested in partnering with you, and giving you guys some money, or even them themselves, if they are interested in kind of sponsoring your event for you or giving you kind of a lump sum to get started. So creating the program. So a few things to consider here. So I've kind of got a word cloud with different things that are important to think about. So structure. So it's really important to create a timetable for your day, which you can share with participants and attendees nice and early. It's also important to consider when structuring your day, like different learning styles, making sure you're not having too many back-to-back talks, and kind of dispersing some networking sessions or some hands-on learning in between the talks to kind of keep attention levels nice and high and keep your day nice and engaging. Timing. So it's a good idea to allocate a timekeeper for your throughout the day. So this will make sure that all the talks stick to time, making sure that if anyone runs over, there's someone that is kind of making them know that they've only got, or they've run over, and thinking about how you can perhaps make up some time at the end of the day or at different points throughout the day. Different teaching styles. So as I kind of mentioned before, not having too much just kind of lecture style teaching, and having some workshops and some team building or hands-on learning throughout the day as well. It's obviously a good way to keep audience engaged, but it's also a nice way for attendees to feel like they've left the day having learned something new and having developed like a new skill. So that's also a good idea. Lunch breaks, thinking about when they should be placed throughout the day. Attention and kind of energy levels tend to be a bit lower after lunch. So it can be really useful if you kind of use a workshop or put in a skills session just after the lunch break to get energy levels back up. And then lastly, networking. So kind of conferences and courses are a great way to meet like-minded individuals. So it's often quite nice for you to have a networking session at some part of the day so people can kind of just chat and make some new connections. So yeah, those are some key things I think it's important to consider when creating your program. So this is an example schedule. So it starts at 9:30 and at 3. This is a conference about getting into medicine. It's a made-up conference. Just to give you an example about what a day could look like. So you've got some 20-minute presentations, not too long, but also enough time where you can put sufficient information into your presentation. Then there's some networking sessions, a personal statement writing workshop. So again, getting your attendees nice and involved. And then a mock MMI. So again, kind of an active session where attendees can get stuck in and also get some feedback on the skills that they've learned throughout the day. So advertising. So why is good advertising and marketing important? So firstly, it helps attract participants and attendees. It also helps create excitement in the build up to your day. So posting on social media, email marketing, using countdowns really helps build the excitement, and also helps to build your brand and your community. So ways to successfully market this course, I'll go much more into depth in presentation number 3, but just an overview. So using social media platforms, sending out information to like local hospitals or med schools can be really useful, asking them to stick up any flyers or posters in the mess or around the med school, or just send out any emails to people that they think might be interested in attending. You could also publish infographics on social media, use paid advertisements, and another great thing to do is create a website if you don't already have one. This is really useful because everything's kind of in one place and it really helps establish your brand amongst attendees. So booking and registration. So this is another really important thing to consider, and making sure it's nice and easy for attendees to book onto your course. Some popular ways to do this are Microsoft or Google Forms, Eventbrite, or having a booking page on your company website. So these methods allow you to collect information from your attendees and gain an idea of numbers. So it's really important to make sure that it's like a nice, easy process for attendees to be able to carry out. Something to consider is if you are charging for your course, so if you're running a paid course, using something like Eventbrite, which allows a secure payment method, or if you have a booking page on your company website, again, just making sure that payment method is nice and secure. Another thing to consider is if you're providing refreshments, making sure that you have a section where you can collect any information regarding allergies or intolerances for your attendees. That's another thing that's really important to consider. So yeah, other things, free, if your event is free, kind of any method can be used. Paid tickets, as I mentioned, Eventbrite or website. Higher numbers, Eventbrite or website may be slightly easier than manually going through a Microsoft form or Google form. And as I mentioned, providing information about allergies or intolerances. So no matter how you choose to organise your booking and registration, important things to consider. Making sure that information is set out clearly, so that's date, time, location, what your course is about, what's going to be offered, making it a user-friendly process, so not too complex, and also making sure it's mobile-friendly, as that will be most likely the way that people will register for the course, so making sure that it's easy to do that on the phone. Waiting list, so if there are any dropouts, allowing people to be notified that there's a space that's become available so that they can be booked on. Sustaining communication, So once participants or attendees have been booked onto the course, kind of keeping up communication with them, sending out emails, and encouraging them to follow your social media accounts. And then also secure payment if you are running a paid course, as I've already mentioned. So on the day logistics. So for both online and face-to-face courses, good idea to set some general house rules. So whether that's about cameras on, microphones off, whether it's online or in person, whether it's about where the toilets are, any fire exits. Allocate a timekeeper, as I discussed earlier, in terms of scheduling of the day, and having a backup copy of all presentations. So this is just in case any of the speakers drop out last minute or there's an emergency and they can't make it anymore. This allows you to be able to, or somebody else to be able to present their presentation on their behalf, so your attendees don't miss out on anything. So I've put some other things that you can consider in this table. So online, making sure the meeting link and your technology is working nice and early before attendees start joining. Also allocating people to be in charge of meeting admission and chat monitoring. Face-to-face, allocating roles of setting up equipment and room layout, coordinating and organising refreshments, and also assigning a team for registration and check-in. So lastly, feedback. So why is feedback important? So it identifies strengths and areas for improvement in course delivery. It ensures that your course content aligns with participants' needs and industry standards, and that should say facilitates continuous improvement and allows for better content, logistics, and outcomes for your future events that you put on. Potential areas that you could collect feedback on are content, so that's appropriateness, depth, and clarity of information. Speakers, so how knowledgeable were the speakers? Were they good at communicating? Was their delivery style good? Was it easy to understand? And you could also collect some feedback on course logistics, so venue, technology, timing, etc., etc. Ways to collect feedback. So I'd suggest kind of a Google or Microsoft form. They tend to be really easy to use and to set up. I also recommend having completing feedback as a requirement for participants to receive their certificate. So kind of having a QR code that they can scan at the end of the day, which allows them to complete the feedback. And then upon completion of the feedback, they'll be able to receive their certificate. So that just ensures that you get as much feedback as possible, because attendees will want to make sure that they get their certificate after their long day at your course. And then, regarding QR codes, actually, it's often a good idea if your event's in person to stick some QR codes around the room, so people can kind of scan on their way out as well. And then lastly, you can also provide kind of a physical feedback form just in case people don't have access to a smartphone. So that kind of concludes this introductory presentation. Thank you for listening. Again, as I mentioned, there'll be 2 more presentations part of this series, which can be also found on the Delta YouTube channel, about advertising and marketing and financing your course. So I hope it was useful, and I'll see you in the next presentation.